The widespread garbage problem across the streets of Birmingham has gone beyond a red alert level. At this point, it has been described as the UK's second city has become a third world hellhole.
We got into the car park and people have just filled up the wagons. Look, he hasn't even got into our regional car park. Look at that. People are just chucking it.
Don't follow him there, man. Don't throw him in there.
He hasn't even got into the car park. And the queue of 1,000 aunties with bins. Look, all these people are waiting in the queue. It's crazy here. All that car park's full of people. The queue again all the way, man.
The massive piles of rubbish are moving, not because of the wind, but because of the number of rats. This is the grim reality in cities across the UK, where the streets are now plagued by swarms of rodents feeding on uncollected garbage. With local councils effectively bankrupt and unable to pay refuse workers, the country is witnessing a full-blown collapse of basic public services. Critics have accused the Labour government of dragging Britain back to the Dark Ages, not just economically, but literally, as urban centers face rat infestations of medieval proportions. It's a return to scenes reminiscent of the bubonic plague era, only this time under the banner of progressive mismanagement and socialist rhetoric. Elsewhere, an MP's question was blatantly dodged without the slightest attempt at a proper answer.
You've got MPs today who are getting an increase in what they're being paid. I'm not saying they don't deserve that or whatever, but to come along and say, you're going to work and you're going to do the most horrible job emptying these bins, and we're going to take 8,000 quid off you, as if they have 8,000 quid to spare, these people.
Well, exactly.
It's a lot of money.
Well, exactly. So you can understand where the workers are coming from, and you can understand why the trade unions are representing them. But look, this cannot be resolved at a Birmingham level, in my view now.
No.
Ministers have got to bring these two sides together and try and hammer out a deal, because this is not fair on the people of Birmingham that have to walk down the street and there's rubbish piled up everywhere. It's putting vulnerable people at risk.
And the size of the rats.
Yeah, horrible.
Now have
Horrible.
Apparently the piles of rubbish are moving and look like they're alive because the number
This
of
is
rats
just terrible,
in
isn't
those
it?
piles. Since the 11th of March this has been going on now, so you can imagine the smell.
I'd be interested to see or hear.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We have Birmingham Labour MPs campaigning for a new airport in Pakistan. Meanwhile, we have rats the size of cats in Birmingham feasting on a month's worth of rubbish, courtesy of the trade union friends of the party opposite. Simple question to the Minister. When is this rubbish going to be cleared?
Minister. Well, we both share the intention and the ambition that as soon as possible. There should not be any further delay in reaching agreement when it's quite clear, with the volume of waste that's being collected, that it's proving to be a waste hazard. And he will know, with his background as a councillor, that it's for the council as a local employer to resolve this with the trade unions by agreement, and that's what we want.
In what is rapidly becoming a symbol of modern Britain's decline, the streets of major cities like Birmingham and Glasgow are now overflowing with mountains of uncollected rubbish, and moving, quite literally, due to the number of rats nesting within them. Local authorities, crippled by bankruptcy and stretched beyond capacity, are failing to provide even the most basic services. The images are startling. refuse piled high in residential areas, rats darting across pavements in broad daylight, and citizens left to navigate a health hazard that wouldn't look out of place in a developing country. Critics have been quick to lay blame at the feet of the Labour government, accusing it of overseeing not just economic stagnation, but a full-blown civic collapse. This isn't just a failure of local councils, one opposition MP said. This is the failure of a political ideology that pretends to care for the working class while abandoning them to filth and ruin. Public frustration is mounting, and with good reason, as ministers continue to deflect and dodge questions in Parliament, some with brazen indifference. The sense of political accountability has all but vanished. Meanwhile, the consequences of this administrative rot are being felt most sharply by ordinary Britons. Working-class communities are bearing the brunt of a system buckling under its own contradictions. The very voters that Labour claims to champion are now living in conditions that resemble a Dickensian dystopia more than a 21st century democracy. Pundits have begun to coin the phrase "broken Britain" not as hyperbole, but as bleak realism. What was once the heart of an empire now struggles to keep its streets clean, its public servants paid, or its elected leaders honest. The notion that Britain is sleepwalking into crisis no longer feels alarmist. It feels overdue, unless real reforms take shape, and soon the UK risks losing not just its global reputation, but the fundamental trust of its own citizens. Rhetoric will not sweep the streets. Platitudes will not kill rats, and evasive ministers will not fix what is now visibly falling apart.
April the 1st, but nobody's laughing.
Well, no, and it feels like we're all the fools, doesn't it? The government's putting up so many costs, loading costs on businesses and employers. They don't get that it's the private sector and businesses that really create sustainable jobs. They're the ones that create economic growth. And because of that 40 billion tax raid from the Chancellor, that, of course, like an egg through a snake, is going through all parts of the economy. It's hitting nurseries, hospices, private businesses, even the councils that are having to put up council tax as a consequence. So I'm afraid it really does, lay the door squarely at the government. It's bad choices that they've made.
Of course, Andrew Griffith, they would no doubt blame once again, as sure as night follows day, the £22 billion black hole that you guys left them.
Yeah, look, it's pathetic, isn't it? There's more evidence for the Loch Ness Monster than that 22 billion black hole. They came up with that idea to try and justify the lies they told to the British people. She said she wasn't going to put taxes up on work. She said she wasn't going to fiddle the fiscal rules, and then created a whole new set of fiddled rules, by the way, that she also broke. And we found that out last week in the spring statement. So, look, there's no one to blame but themselves. They're in government. They chose to go on a public spending spree of £70 billion a year, right? If there was a black hole, fill it. Don't go and then create a huge spending spree that means everybody's taxes have had to go up. And now we're sitting here, waiting to see if the government's failed to secure an agreement with the US. That means British businesses and jobs could be at risk from tariffs from as early as later this week.
Andrew Griffith, could I ask you about this report we just did with the Taxpayers Alliance? You may have overheard an astonishing number of councillors on more than 200 grand a year. 200 grand a year. And we're seeing rubbish up to your armpits in Birmingham. How can these levels of pay be justified for town hall pen pushers?
Yeah, I don't think they can. The truth is that there are too many people in the public sector paid too much, often not turning up